Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Travel and Transformation Show with me, your host, Sophia. And today, my guest is Jenny Eden Berk. She is a binge and emotional stress eating coach. She's a culinary nutritionist and the author of The Body Image Blueprint. Thank you so much for being here, Jenny.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So tell us, tell us how you got to this space of being that type of coach. Like, what is it that made you say, you know what? I want to help people with binge and emotional eating, and I also want to be a culinary nutritionist.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a roundabout story, but just to, put a highlight in it, it's when I was a child, my mom was a chef. So
Ooh,
I food was like love in my family. And nobody in my family struggled with weight except for me. I always struggled with weight. I loved food. My mom would, I come home from school and there would be like pastries swimming in a pool of ganache with like it was like fancy stuff. It wasn't like apples. And I grew like a real love of food. But, you know, unfortunately, because I struggled with weight and because I love to eat, I was always chronically dying from a very young age, probably like 14 or something like that. And I, continued to have a lot of disordered eating throughout the years, a lot of restriction and scarcity mindset around food, and to the point where I became kind of scared about it. And I didn't really trust myself to make good choices. And I found myself like when I was overwhelmed, or if I was stressed out, or if I was grieving in some way, like food became my surrogate go to comfort. And, it led me to working actually at a weight and health management company after college, that I was at for 13 years. And I was teaching people in a group setting how to be on a structured, very, very structured, low calorie diet. It was basically meal replacements.
mm,
And I would teach classes and then counsel people individually. And what I realized is that people would do the diet, but they kept coming back. That they would do the diet, they'd lose a lot of weight, they'd leave, and then they come back a few months later having gained the weight back. And
right.
after a while, I kept thinking, like, are we really helping people here? Or is there something else that we can look at? The root cause of why people feel that they need to binge eat or stress eat or emotionally eat. And why is there such recidivism in here? Like, what is it that we're missing? So that led me to leaving the company and starting my own practice. And I ended up getting a certificate in eating psychology and then culinary nutrition because I also love to cook, thanks to my mom. And I help people like learn how to home cook and meal plan with mindfulness. And it just, I just grew a huge passion for it. I stopped dieting myself and it was very liberating. And yeah, so that's really why I feel so strongly connected to this particular topic.
And that is really interesting because we hear about yo-yo dieting all the time, and when your body goes into scarcity, like literally, not just our mindset, but then our body goes into scarcity. And it's like, okay, well, if she's not going to feed us, let's just hold on to the fat.
Definitely. Oh my, that's so true. That's so true. Like we have our natural set point, right? And then when we try to challenge it, we try to like control our bodies in some way. Our bodies will rebel and they won't trust us. And so when, like, as you're saying, like when that happens, guess what else happens? Your hunger hormones shift and your body is hungry a lot more. And when you're hungrier more, you don't have the willpower or resolve, let's say. I hate that word willpower, but it's the resolve to eat in a certain way that you know will support your body when you're ravenous. Like you don't care what's in front of you when you're starving. Like I'm gonna make a green smoothie with, like you're like, okay, is there crackers? I'm gonna grab the crackers, like whatever is easiest. So yeah, I totally relate to what you just said.
So, as people, because you saw it for like 13 years,
Mm,
people diet, they leave, They think that it's sustainable, and it really isn't because the lifestyle hasn't really changed, but the mindset hasn't changed. So, how do you help people to change their mindset around food and have like a loving relationship with food rather than a love-hate relationship with it? Because you can't not have it, so you can't cut it out.
Right. Right. It's so true. So this is something I grappled with for forever because I felt that I had to have control over my eating in order to be the weight that I wanted to be or to feel the way that I wanted to feel. And I realized like that restriction and scarcity mindset actually puts me in a stress response. It actually puts me in a sympathetic fight or flight response all the time. If you're worried about food, what am I going to eat next? How many calories can I have? How many bites should I have? It becomes preoccupying, right? And so this is part of why I really embraced mindful and intuitive eating because if you can use, your senses and you can use specific tools to help calm your body down, to let your body know that it's safe around food and that you can trust yourself. And if you take it slowly, and you cooperate with your body rather than trying to fight against it, your body's going to give you the signals that you need to make the right choices. This is what I found. And this is what I see with my clients all the time that I used to like shovel in my food like this, like I was in a race to finish, partially because it was habitual, like just, it was a chaotic environment. I have the TV on, I'm just eating really fast. Or because if I eat it really fast, then I don't have time to think about how worried I am about the consequences of what I just ate. That's
Oh.
often a reason why people eat really fast. But when I started to slow down and I started to really taste my food, it was really remarkable. I started to get full faster. I started to realize that the foods I thought I loved, I actually don't love. In fact, I did a mindful eating exercise. I did a certificate program on mindful eating instruction, and we did it ourselves. And I thought that I loved wheat thins. Like I used to eat like a whole sleeve of wheat thins, and like I was always binging on wheat thins. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this with wheat thins. And when I actually ate it mindfully and slowly and savored it, I was like, I'm gonna break up with you. It's not me, it's you. I'm like, I don't like the taste of this. This I can taste the chemicals. This is a filling. And it was just really amazing because I was like, I don't really want these anymore. This food is not in control of me any longer. And so when you can have that sort of allyship with your body in a different way and start to listen to it deeper and start to respect your body and to really listen to understand what it wants and needs, you might get really surprised at the things that it tells you. Like I started craving broccoli all the time. I'm like, what's this about? I want broccoli? You know, and so it's a long process. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but once you can start to feel safe in your body and you can agree to be in your body versus in your head all the time, that's when your body feels safe to give you those hunger and satiety cues. And you can also savor your food in a way that there's actually something called sensory specific satiety, which is when your taste buds have a refractory period. And if you start, let's say you have like a piece of chocolate. I used to, you know, down my chocolate like this, but when you really savor like a small piece of chocolate, I realized, ooh, this is really rich. Like, oh, this is very sugary. Oh, wow, this is delicious. But then each subsequent bite becomes less delicious, becomes less fulfilling. There's like a law of diminishing returns. And a lot of times we override that because we're just eating so fast. But when I slowed down and I was truly savoring that really unctuous, like delicious, rich piece of chocolate, that was enough. That's all I needed. And for me, that was like such an aha moment that I knew I had to teach this to people because this was so groundbreaking.
So I find that really interesting that with each bite, it can get less and less. But one thing you said was about being in your body and getting out of your
Mm.
head. Now, if you're somebody who actually lives in your head, how do you go about being in your body?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and it eludes so many of us because we're not conscious of it. We're just constantly ruminating and worrying and thinking and trying to like intellectualize our problems and solve them that way. But what it takes to really drop into your body is, first of all, a sense of safety, right? So you have to, that often comes through your five senses. So if you are able to, let's say with just with respect to food, if you like can really take the time to smell your food and, just, touch it even and, listen to the crunching when you taste it, those things actually help you to be embodied in your body. You have a choice. Like, how does this taste? What does this sound like? How does it smell? You are automatically in your body when you do that. Also, when you can learn some strategies to get into a parasympathetic nervous system response in your body, you're much more likely to then agree to be in it. Because a lot of times, the reason we want to claw out of our skin and be in our heads is because our bodies don't feel good. We don't feel safe. We don't feel comfortable. We don't trust ourselves. And I found that when, if you like focus on like some vagal tone exercises, such as humming or hormetic stressors, like putting a bag of peas on your face or like a cold shower, these are things that instantly bring you back in your body. You feel it, Right. What
Yeah,
then you have
see that
the
your face. Feel that.
like ice pack or frozen peas, even like meditating and breath work can get you to that space as well. Also, things like humming or chanting, these are things that help connect you to your body and can help at the same time get you more back into a parasympathetic response.
And I think that's good to know because if you're somebody who lives in your head, then you think you're in your body, right? But if you don't have anybody to give you clues to tell you that you're in your body, then you may be there and not realize you're there, or you may think you're there and you're not there.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's so true. And because we're so used to intellectualizing everything rather than feeling, we're thinking instead of feeling. And because feelings don't always feel so good, there's a reason for that, especially if you have a history of trauma or, any kind of past experiences that have made you feel unsafe in having your feelings of being in the body. So I really like it makes sense that we do this, but there is a way, there is a path back to back home to yourself.
And you said humming. So is there any specific humming, or if a song's on that you like, you just hum to that particular song or?
Yeah, I mean, you can just literally just hum like, mm. There's also a technique called VU. It's VU, VU, like that. And you want to like have it resonate in your throat so that it's connecting to your vagal tone muscle because that's what's going to help you shift from stress, fight or flight to parasympathetic. So like anything that's going to uh, kind of have this vagal tone vibrate a little bit. That's why chanting like Om can really help as well.
Okay.
But even if you're like in the car and you want to just hum to some music, that will be just as fine too, like your favorite music. Either way.
Yeah, because I think sometimes if we can make it fun, well, always, okay, I can speak for me. If I can make it fun, chances are I will do it.
Exactly. So like pick your favorite song and if you're feeling stressed, that's a great way to like help anyway. Listening to music has incredible health benefits and mental health benefits. But you could, put on your favorite song, you could start dancing or shaking, even like shaking helps get excess stress energy out. And then you could hum, which is also going to activate the vagal tone muscle. And there are lots of ways that you can do that. Any kind of dancing, it makes you happy is a perfect way to reconnect with your body, lower the stress response, and help, especially if you do it before eating. It's going to help you to eat from a place of calm rather than a place of fear or worry or stress or overwhelm.
And so I know a bad habit that I have that I'm working on is I eat and watch TV. And yeah. And I know. And the thing is, intellectually, I know you should not eat and watch TV. But, you know,
It's only you and 100 million other people. Like everybody does that. It's so, so common. Um, but at the same time, you may notice like when you're watching TV, like, oh, there's a pizza commercial. I wasn't hungry, but let me die. Let me, I haven't thought about dinner yet. So there are also like environmental cues when you're watching TV that can continue to keep you in a stress response. You know, I don't like to vilify distractions like that because we all need them to some degree. I consider myself an expert in mindful eating, and sometimes I eat in my car because I'm in a rush. You can't be perfect and pristine. So if that's a habit you have, my suggestion wouldn't be just stop it. Like, nope, can't do that. That's bad. What I would do is pick one or two meals or snacks during the week where you can practice mindful eating and try to think of it as a ratio, like ratio of mindful eating to distracted eating. And then over time, start to build more of the meals that you have as mindful eating versus the times when you're watching TV or, listening to music even, or whatever it is, whatever your distraction of choice is.
yeah, because sometimes if it's not TV, then I'm doing something on the computer that I need to finish. And I also need to eat. So we're doing it at
Right.
the same time. It's like
I know.
forkful, type, chew, type, type, forkful.
It's so true. I mean, it's so, so common. And again, it's not to like say that that's bad. It's to say like, let's be aware of it and let's see if we can build some strategies to meal by meal practice another way of eating. And over time, you may find like, oh, my digestion is better when I do this, or oh, I taste the food better. Like I like the taste of it better. I remember I worked with a client once. She was working on mindful eating with me, and she was so excited because she brought a brownie to work, and this was something she never let herself have. I'm gonna have a brownie. I'm so excited. I'm gonna eat it mindfully. And she was in a meeting, like an hour-long meeting, and I guess she ate it. And then later she's like, "Where's that brownie?" She already ate it. She wasn't even aware she ate it. She's like, "Ah, foiled again," like it's all a part of the process of learning and practicing.
Well, it's funny because I was seeing somebody once and he was away for his birthday. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going out. And so I was going out anyway. And I was like, I'm going to get a piece of cake in honor of your birthday. And so the whole thing was I was supposed to tell him what the cake was like. And so that actually made me stop and really taste each bite of this cake so I could describe it. I could describe what it looked like. I could describe every taste. I could describe where like all the notes hit. And
Love that.
I think that's the most mindful I've ever been in my life over a piece of food. I mean, I have enjoyed food mindfully, but I was on a mission to really be able to describe this cake.
And what was the experience different? Like, did you find that you enjoyed it more?
I can't say that I enjoyed it more, but I really did enjoy it because I spent so much time with it.
Mhm.
It's almost like this is my friend. We're spending time together. I'm
Well,
really getting to know you. And so by the time I was done with this and I wrote it all out and I sent it because I decided not to call and talk about it, I decided to write it. And he was like, "Oh my God." It's like I can taste the cake. It's like it's almost like it's in my mouth. I can taste it.
wow. That is amazing. Good for you. You should be like a food writer.
For me, it was fun, because I knew why I was doing it. And so I was on this mission to make sure that I can really describe this cake. And in order for me to really describe it, it's like, well, you really have to enjoy it and be close to it and make friends with it.
It's run that cake. But what you did is exactly what I do with clients. It's like using all of your senses and really being with your food, like consciously, rather than just sort of eating just to eat.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, because you talked about when your body feels safe, it'll tell you when it's hungry. But here's the thing, something that I've noticed with me. Sometimes I'm just not hungry,
Mm,
but I look at the time and it's like, oh, you should really eat.
mm,
Or I look at the time and it's like, damn, it's late.
mm.
You're like 2 hours out of bed, but now you're hungry.
Yep.
So, what if I were a client and I came in and I told you that, what would you say?
Well, very, very common to not be hungry. In fact, I have a lot of clients who, because of chronic dieting or ignoring their hunger cues, they have learned to sort of disassociate from them. And so, like, they won't think about eating. And what that does is it kind of deregulates your whole circadian rhythm. And that can be an issue because then if you're consistently eating, let's say at 11 and you forgot to eat, and then you're having lunch or breakfast or whatever, you tend to eat later and later during the day and maybe have a bigger meal at night. Or this particular client that I worked with on this always woke up in the middle of the night to eat because there was hunger then. And so what I often share with people is like, you want to honor your hunger cues. You don't want to like force yourself to eat if you're not hungry.
Right.
However, there's also a blood sugar issue because if you don't eat in the morning, and then you have, let's say, like you have a bagel or something, what happens is that your blood sugars, shoot up really high and then they come crashing down. And then you're chasing your hunger all day long and you're chasing your cravings. However, if you have something really small even, like you can set an alarm and just have like a few almonds or some protein rich, like a hard-boiled egg, something that's not going to be a lot of volume that you're going to be like stuffed, but it's like it's starting your metabolism for the day and it's helping you to regulate your blood sugars, which will keep you more stable throughout the day and give you less cravings throughout the day, but also at night. So there is some benefit. This is usually what I'll say is like, could you have like, I don't know, like a piece of turkey? Could you have a couple nuts? Could you have something, and just set an alarm to remind you? Because a lot of times we are influenced by external cues of eating, like the clock, right? Oh, it's 12 o'clock, it's lunchtime, I should eat, versus internal cues. And, a lot of what I do is help people to listen and honor to their internal cues, but also we got to be realistic that sometimes they're just not there yet, or they're just for whatever reason you're not hungry. And I don't like to, have people eat when they're not hungry. But I think that there is something you can do just to help stabilize your blood sugars.
And so, what would you do? Okay, I'm sure with some of your clients, they do intermittent fasting. So, if you're not starting your metabolism, like especially over 40 with protein, like within a couple hours of getting out of bed because you're intermittent fasting, how does that work for you or against you? Because I've writ, okay, I can't speak. I have read so many articles on how great intermittent fasting is, but then I've also, on the other side of that, read things that it's not, after a certain time, it's not good for you. So we aren't all cookie cutters. So I mean, sure, it's probably going to be good for some people and not good for others. But how do you know?
Absolutely. So I am not an expert on intermittent fasting. However, I think a lot of people who do intermittent fasting will, if they're hungry, let's say they'll have water and tea just to like help them get through the point where I guess they're gonna start eating. But then also when they start eating, again, it's the same idea of having the protein first because that's gonna help stabilize the blood sugars. And one thing I will say, if you have a history of eating disorders or disordered eating, I don't recommend intermittent fasting because it can really harken back to times of feeling deprived, restricted, hungry, and that can be really, really triggering for some people. Like I don't think I could ever do it because of my history. Because when I feel hungry, I feel very panicky, and I don't like that feeling of like low blood sugar or like feeling like I could just eat a chair right now. I'm so hungry. So I don't care what's in front of me. So I'm like you said, it's not cookie cutter. If you choose to do intermittent fasting, I think that you've got to be careful and delicate about it in terms of what you end up feeding yourself first with. And if you start with a good protein source, and clothe your carbs, so to speak. So if you're having carbohydrate, that you just can buffer it with some fat, like avocado maybe, and a little bit of protein. That is no matter when you start eating, that's also gonna do the same in terms of, regulating your blood sugars.
And so, what is your take on sleep and eating? Because I know there's some days if I don't get enough sleep, I feel like I have a tapeworm. Because it's like there's something that just wants to be fed constantly.
Yeah, so like so many other things, we can often mistake certain body cues. It's called interoception, right? Interoception is like when you know you have to go to the bathroom, or when you know you're hungry, or when you're feeling pain. And a lot of us have mixed cues because we haven't learned to fully be with our bodies and embody our bodies. So sleep is incredibly important, not just because it regulates your hunger hormones, but also because it actually can affect your gut health, and it can create lack of sleep or lack of quality sleep can create a gut dysbiosis, which can then also create food cravings. And so it's like this vicious cycle sometimes. And we're not, always able to get a good amount of sleep or good quality sleep. But obviously that's the goal first, is to focus on sleep hygiene, focusing on the steps that you need to take to get a good night's sleep. But if you can't, you know, a lot of times we mistake feeling tired for being hungry, or we mistake being thirsty for being hungry, or we mistake being bored for being hungry. So like a lot of the things that we're experiencing, we think of food is going to sort of solve that problem. And with respect to stress eating, a lot of times food actually can ground us. It actually can help us to temporarily feel better. But we also know that stress eating leads to longer term problems and issues. And it's difficult emotionally to be stress eating as well. So the first thing I try to do with people who are struggling with sleep is to help them find strategies to help them sleep better. And that might need get a sleep study, see if you have sleep apnea, lower the temperature in your room, get a weighted blanket if you're anxious and you have trouble falling asleep, um, you know, and a mask, for instance, or, darkening shades. There's so many different little tips and tools you can use to help somebody, optimize their sleep. But there are always going to be times when you can't do that. And what I would say is I just honor where you are that day. And if you're hungry, you want to make sure you're eating. But there's a way to eat where you can bring in volume and nutrient density. So during those tapeworm times, I have them too. I like to make big smoothies because there I can put some protein powder in, and you add a little fruit, maybe put some kale in, some nuts, and and I put a lot of ice in, and I get a lot of volume from that. And so it can make me fuller for a longer period of time. And I'm also getting that nutrient density, which is going to help fuel my body throughout the day, despite a lack of sleep.
And yeah, that is a good idea because I do like smoothies and stuff. I think sometimes, and for me, it's more of because I have good foods in the house, but it's really about planning better.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's like I don't I don't like to wait until I'm hungry to decide what to eat because then it's like, oh my God, It's like I gotta defrost this, or I gotta do this, or I got, and it's like, and then it turns into I don't know what I want.
Yeah.
And I know I do so much better when I plan. So, if I plan, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, or even if it's one day at a time, but I plan the day ahead
Yeah.
that I'm gonna have this,
Yeah.
then it
Yeah.
works a lot better.
100%. And planning is really hard sometimes. And in fact, it's one of the hardest things that I find people struggle with because, you know, planning your meals, it takes time. It takes mental energy. It takes emotional energy. You have to go shopping. You have to figure things out. And a lot of us are like, I don't have time for that. I just got to I have this meeting and I've got this and I've got that. And so one of the things that I like to do is plan the night before. So like if I'm in bed, it doesn't have to be like 3 ounces of this and then I'm going to do this. But it could just be like, okay, what do I have in the house? Oh, I have a banana. I have some peanut butter. Good. I can start with that. And that's going to take the edge off my hunger. And from there, I can make some more conscious choices. Or once I'm full on that, I can head over to the store on my way to work, grab a yogurt, or whatever it is. But just sort of like a wireframe plan in your head about what you have and what you can actually do with what you have on hand. There's actually studies that show that like 60% of Americans don't know what they're going to eat for dinner by 4 o'clock. And think about that. If you don't know what you're going to eat on your way home and you're exhausted and you're tired from all the decisions you've made and the meetings you've had, you're much more likely to, you know, order a pizza or grab, Chick-fil-A on your way home or just do whatever's easiest, DoorDash, versus if you can, throughout the day, even you don't even have to do it days in advance. But like what I would do is, like after a meeting, like at noon or something, I will be like, okay, I'm going to have this for dinner. I know I have some dried rice, brown rice in the cabinet. Oh, and I have some frozen veggie burgers in my freezer. So at the very least, I can have that. Um, or, you can say, you know what? I think I have time to stop over to Trader Joe's on my way home and I'm going to grab XYZ. It's literally just bringing a little consciousness to what you're going to eat. It doesn't have to be a full on like fail safe plan, that has a million steps to it or anything like that.
Yeah, I think for me too, sometimes I do, like yesterday, I was cooking and whatnot, but sometimes the meal prep itself takes so long. And I was like, how did an hour just go by and I'm still not eating yet?
Ah,
So, because it's like I had to cut up all the stuff and then prepare all the stuff and
yeah,
then cook it, wait for it to cook. Then, so it just became a whole thing, which I mean, I'm making it sound a whole heck of a lot worse than it was. But I think that could be one of the things that slow people down because you don't anticipate that it's going to take X amount of time to do the chopping and the cutting and the this and the that and whatever else needs to be done. If it's not just, an easy whatever, because I was roasting stuff, roasting vegetables, and it took a minute.
mm,
And I also had other things to do, and I didn't stop and think, oh wow, this is going to take me this amount of time to get done.
yeah. Right. Of course, we overlook that because when we're hungry, we're like, okay, I'm just going to make this. But you're like, oh, I got to chop those vegetables or I gotta like, what is it called? Like peel the carrots and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And I think like one thing that I do and that I help my clients do is I kind of categorize days by green, orange, red. And there are going to be, and I base that on energy capacity and time capacity. So there are going to be times when it's a red day, you have no energy, you're exhausted, and you're just not going to be able to do that. And you know what? You make something that's super easy, like an avocado toast, or you have a frozen meal, or you open up a can of soup. I'm not saying it's the healthiest always, but on red days, that's going to be good enough. On orange days, you can maybe do a little bit of prep in advance. So maybe before you leave for work, you chop up some of those vegetables. And so all you have to do is drizzle your pan and stick it in the oven. And then on green days or even green weeks, you can have like a 2-hour batching session where you are pre-chopping those vegetables, maybe even roasting them in advance, putting them in daggies, and then you just have to heat it up in the microwave and you add it to a protein and you're good to go. But always like to honor where people are at on a specific day, because I found that whenever I tried to force myself to do stuff, because it's healthy, it's the best choice, I tend to rebel. Like I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. You do that, and then you feel bad about yourself, and then you feel like I can't do this. Like I knew I couldn't do this. You want to be able to create quick wins for yourself in whatever capacity that means for you. And so, if you start to realize, oh, okay, so it took me an hour to chop up these vegetables. When do I have an hour that I can do this in advance? Or, or, I know it's a little more expensive, but just for today, I'm gonna get the pre-chopped vegetables at the store. So I'm gonna like reduce friction here and help myself create a win to make this easier on myself.
And I like that you threw in create quick wins because I think we're such a doing society. Like, and especially, I mean, yeah, men do what they do, right? But they're doers. Women, really, we're receivers, but we end up being doers. And we're spending so much time doing that it's almost like on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. Like, uh, well, people, if you know, you know. Janet Jackson had a song out, What Have You Done For Me Lately? And I think that's how a lot of us live our lives. We don't stop to celebrate the small wins. It's always like, well, what have you done for me lately? Nothing. Just do something else. Go to the next thing. Go do the next thing. And you don't realize that, yeah, you accomplished something and it was a win. So, slow down, recognize it as a win, celebrate in whatever way you want to celebrate, and then do the next thing. Then have the next win.
No, I love that so much. We had a concept where I worked, called, wait, what was the term? And it came out of my head, but like just, getting yourself a little grace and patting yourself on the back for small things, because no one else is going to do it for you. No one's going to be like, good job cutting those vegetables, So, but you can do that for yourself. You can say, this was not easy for me at this juncture, but I did it. And that is a win. And the more that you acknowledge yourself and give yourself grace and compassion and, realize that for you, this is a win, that's going to actually motivate you more than shaming or blaming yourself for not doing something.
Right. It's just funny. I just had this whole vision in my head, right? Of, well, it has to be internal because a lot of people seek external validation and it makes them feel good in the moment. But when you can internally validate yourself, it's way better. But the picture that just showed up was like somebody like standing over your shoulder, like, good job, you just did all those vegetables. Wow, you're great. Like you have that cheerleader externally just over your shoulder
Yeah.
telling you what your wins are and celebrating you in that moment. So yeah, that was a picture I just got in my head, but that cheerleader, that external cheerleader, if we can turn that person inward and hear the same voice, hear that same cheer voice.
Totally. Like I picture that meme of like that guy throwing glitter at you, like, good job. You cut up those carrots, here's some bluer.
Yeah, I love that. The whole thing is like, oh wow, you really took a long time to eat your food today, and you tasted all of it. Yay!
true because, you're so right. We're always on to the next thing, the next accomplishment. It's never as good as whoever else's accomplishment. And really, like, small wins turn into big wins. And if you are acknowledging them, you're much more likely to continue to do them. It actually creates momentum. We're always looking for motivation, but motivation comes from taking small actions. You can't create something out of nothing. You can create something and then build from there. And that something could be really, really small. And to really take that moment to be like, I didn't think I could do this and I did it. And what else can I do?
Yeah. Or in that moment when you just want to give up, because in that moment, life is hard. Something happened, where things aren't working out on the timeline that you want it to work out on, or whatever the thing is, whatever the setback looks like, it's you have to just turn inward and be that cheerleader. And sometimes it's not easy. It is not. It's so much easier if you had a pom pom person like behind you, rather than have it come from within you.
Yeah.
But
And don't forget that we also internalize a lot of critical voices from the past and from media and from other influences. It's not common where we're praising ourselves, for anything, but especially for little things. And if you can turn that on its head and, say, I'm welcoming in this nicer voice, this gentler voice, this voice that's more supportive, then you're going to call it more often. You're going to conjure it out more often.
right, right. Well, it's funny because I was out this weekend and I saw somebody and he had a dog. And so most beautiful dog ever. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I love the way your dog is looking at you. He just sits there and he's just looking up at you. And he's like, yeah, it's because of the treats. I thought that was so funny. But I mean, when we think about it, when you're training a dog, a lot of times you train the dog does something great, he gets a treat. And we don't do that with ourselves. Well, I mean, sometimes we do, but the treat's called food, and that may not be the treat that you need in that moment. But if after a certain amount of time, you don't always have to treat the dog, you can just tell the dog, good job, because he's already doing
Mhm.
what he was trained to do. So,
It's a lot about praise, like a lot of people really need some praise in order to feel motivated. And that can come from yourself. I like to say the example of like with my kids, they used to like leave their dirty socks all over the floor all the time. It would drive me nuts. And I'd be like, can you just pick up your socks? And then that wouldn't motivate them to do it. It kind of puts a little fear in them. And maybe they would do it, but it's not from a nice place. So when I started to shift and if they did it, I would notice, I would catch them doing something right instead of blaming them for doing something wrong. So I'd be like, hey, Serena, I noticed you picked up your socks. I'm so happy. Thank you. I really appreciate that. If she would beam, her face would beam. Like don't you think that's going to motivate her to do it again? Is I'm praising her for that? But then think about how we talk to ourselves. Like, why'd you do that again? You had that chocolate again. I said not to do it, and you did it. Versus like, good job. You used all your senses. You ate all these healthy foods. That's going to motivate you more and help you to want to keep doing it.
that actually makes so much sense to recognize how to become motivated. Because I think that's another thing that people have problems with. It's like, well, how do I become motivated? And so now having this conversation and knowing it's the little steps and celebrating the little steps and praising yourself because yeah, mean girl is gonna live in your head. Like she does really need an eviction because she's taking up space and not paying rent. But she's living in your head and she has a lot to say. And then I talk about good girl syndrome all the time, which, are just a bunch of behaviors like people pleasing and
Mm.
all the things. So now you have uh, the good girl behavior, doing all the things that aren't serving you. And then as they're not serving you, you got mean girl talking smack about what you've just done, how you should have done it better, and is criticizing. So we have so much that we're up against
Interesting.
internally
Yeah.
that we have to learn how to just quiet that. And yeah, if we can evict Mean Girl, then yeah, serve those eviction papers and get her out because she's like a squatter.
I like to say, like, you know, I hear you. I mean, I'm not like ignoring you. I hear this mean voice, but I'm just choose not to listen to you. Like, I don't. Is there anyone else who has something to say? Like, I will listen to something else, because that one's always gonna be there. Like, you can. I hear you, but like, I'm gonna listen to the nice voice today.
Yeah. Like, well, acknowledge and move on, or
Yeah.
just try and evict your squatter.
I love that. I love that analogy. It's so true. Like, bye bye,
You're out.
you're out.
So, if people want to find you, and they want to work with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so best thing is to go to my website, www.jennyedenberk.com. And there's a coaching tab. You can fill out a coaching application. I also have a Substack, which is called Just One More Bite with Jenny Burke. You could become a free or paid subscriber. And I talk a lot about sensory science as it relates to stress reduction and your relationship with food and with your relationship with your body there.
Okay, well, that's perfect because I think all of us can always use, I mean, I think a lot of us are on information overload, but if you can be discerning about the information that you take in and just, you know, check things out and see what you need because nobody knows best what you need than you do, even when you think you don't.
Amen to that. That's so true.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I love this conversation. It was wonderful to talk with you today.
All right, talk soon.
Okay.